Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Platinum Quest, a series I created in which I review my favorite games on PlayStation that I achieved the Platinum Trophy for. Here, we review the game, have a discussion about my overall experience unlocking the Platinum Trophy, and tips, tricks, and advice so that you can also unlock your own ultra rare Platinum Trophy. Before we begin, this video will contain spoilers. Please consider liking the video and subscribing with the bell notification on, as it helps out the channel tremendously. Now, let us return to the fog-ridden town of Silent Hill and dive deep into our biggest nightmares with Silent Hill 2 Remake. In the first installment of this series, we have the long-awaited return of the Silent Hill 2 Remake. After its announcement 2 years ago, the hype and speculation of the famed return of the classic psychological masterpiece was finally given to us earlier this month, and fans and newcomers are just absolutely loving it. I will say, the community was skeptical surrounding Bloober Team and the handling of such a pristine, well-regarded video game that is the original Silent Hill 2 on PlayStation 2, and as I'm sure you've seen all over the internet and social media, they delivered us an amazing remake of a classic tale and modernized it for today's hardware and audience. Now, Silent Hill 2 Remake is not perfect. No game ever is, except for maybe Dark Souls or Bioshock 1. But when it comes to negatives, the positives are definitely stronger. So finally, let's get into the review, and we are going to start off with the positives. When it comes to graphics and art direction, Silent Hill 2 Remake looks as beautifully haunting as you could ever imagine. The way Bloober Team uses Unreal Engine 5 to bring this game to life is very impressive, with the way puddles reflect on the streets of this lonely, foggy town, to the way the darkness consumes your vision in the Toluca prison, and the decay and rust of the overworld, Silent Hill just looks the best it's ever been. In my opinion, my most favorite area in the game is the Blue Creek Apartments by a long shot. Leading up to this otherworldly, hellish nightmare, you pass through the famous Woodside Apartments as the player's first taste of a legacy dungeon. Blue Creek Apartments takes what's good about Woodside and just makes it a sprawling maze of decaying walls and rusted metal, and is the perfect interpretation of the other world so far, being frightening and scary to explore. The main puzzle in this area is the clock puzzle, and it's a really good one at that. You can't just blitz through the level with the use of codes from a previous playthrough, as you have to obtain all the clock hands in order to progress. Once you collect a hand from a clock, a series of doors in accordance with the specific hand will open up. For example, the hour hand will open up any door that has an H on it. This is what I meant by progression being locked behind actually playing the game. And once you finally get that last piece, you will have to come face to face with Pyramid Head for the first time. With that said, the town during the day also looks graphically amazing. Back in the day, the fog was a tool to hide certain hardware limitations, but it only cemented Silent Hill's famous look in history as an isolated town consumed by fog everywhere. In conclusion, Silent Hill 2 Remake is one of the most graphically impressive video games I have ever played in my life, so kudos to Bloober Team for crafting an unforgettable new way to look at Silent Hill. Another thing this game nailed is gameplay and world design, specifically the way they are intertwined. The way levels here are structured is akin to some other survival horror games, with unlockable shortcuts and designated safe rooms, offering players a sense of familiarity whether they are returning fans or newcomers to the genre. The intricate explorer is very well rewarded here. If you look in every crevice, smash every window, and check off every room, you will be more than ready to tackle on the horrors that await you, with an overabundance of health items and ammunition. My best advice here is to take your time with exploration. Trust me, it will all be worth it in the end. Some lore is discovered through the collectibles, and there's even an optional puzzle later on that if you paid attention to some of the events in Silent Hill, the treasures inside will be yours for the taking. An unexpected positive for myself and many others is the way Remake structured its combat system. Many were skeptical as in the months leading up to release, gameplay and footage was released showcasing the combat system, and the community was very critical of it. After having spent many hours with the game, I will say that the combat is a positive. The best way I can describe it is, as for ranged engagements, a sort of hybrid between The Last of Us and Resident Evil 4 Remake. You get 3 ranged options here: a handgun found in Woodside Apartments, a pump-action shotgun in Brookhaven Hospital, and a bolt-action rifle locked in the armory within Toluca Prison. All the firearms feel fun to shoot with, and the enemies all feel fun to shoot at. For melee combat, however, it's a little different and similar to the way the Callisto Protocol handled close engagements. You swing onto an enemy a few times, then dodge a few attacks until you take the enemy down. It feels very violent and gritty, and for what it is, it's done very well. Here you can get access to 3 different melee weapons: a wooden plank found in a house at the beginning of the game, a metal pipe found while evading enemies with Maria, and finally a chainsaw that one-shots every enemy except for bosses, that you can find outside Silent Hill Ranch in the New Game Plus mode. Enemy and boss design is what the original had, but more refined and created masterfully here to terrorize the player with the addition of a new enemy type, the spider mannequin discovered in Toluca Prison. As for enemies, the lion figure is your standard cannon fodder here. 2 variants exist in the crawler and the otherworld version, which spits venom violently upon death. For a standard enemy type, they accomplish what they need to and are easily avoidable if you just want to get by them. However, the best enemy in the game so far is the mannequin, first discovered on the 2nd floor of Woodside Apartments after obtaining the flashlight. These freaks lie motionless in place around the corner, behind furniture, or in plain sight using camouflage. These things got a good scare or 2 out of me and are not to be underestimated. Upon arrival to Brookhaven Hospital, we encountered the Bubblehead Nurse, with a pipe variant and an otherworldly knife-wielding variant that is faster but weaker. They are also formidable and should be taken care of quickly, as 1 is enough of a problem, but 2 could mean sudden death. Like mentioned before, the spider mannequin is introduced into Toluca Prison and are a pain to deal with, as you can hear them crawling all around you and serve a perfect purpose in frightening the player. A welcome addition that makes the Toluca Prison one of the most anxiety-inducing areas of the game. Mandarins make an appearance a few times, most notably in the Labyrinth, and are just an utter pain to deal with. And finally, the Critter. They're annoying on the radio, and that's about it. As for bosses, Pyramid Head in the Blue Creek Apartments is an amazing first boss. Flesh Lips in Brookhaven Hospital is violent and action-packed. Abstract Daddy down deep within the Labyrinth is horrifyingly disturbing to deal with. Eddie Dombrowski is scary, violent, and strong, and definitely the most challenging boss. The duel with the 2 Pyramid Heads is the absolute best boss in the game, both from a technical and story-relevant standpoint, and the final boss is a challenging end to an amazing game. No complaints really when it comes to the main lineup of bosses. They are all good, and even the weaker entries here are still what I would consider well-designed bosses. Honorable mention to the story and characters, which are pretty much portrayed as good as you can without changing them from the original 2001 counterparts. The story is as excellent, and the characters are just perfection, both working well together to tell a haunting yet somber tale about past trauma and how to overcome it, if you can. Next, let's get into what I would say are the hit or miss design choices here. The soundtrack personally falls short in some areas. For me, some of the reworked songs on the very famous Silent Hill 2 soundtrack kind of failed to deliver in the overall vibe the classic used to have. For example, some good ones are the new renditions of Heaven's Night and White Noise, while some mediocre or weak ones are the new versions of Theme of Laura or Promise at the end credits. The music will always be subjective, however, so whether you like it or not, these are my opinions about the new soundtrack. Some songs are good, some are weak. This happens to be a pretty common occurrence when it comes to certain media being remade, that in which the soundtrack gets updated or reworked. In my opinion, I think it's fine to alter the original soundtrack. However, the best course of action here would be to include an option to switch it back to the original, and unfortunately, we don't have anything like that. Next up, we have the radio. While useful for the function it provides, I find it very annoying, as for most enemies, it seems to detect them pretty quietly and efficiently, but when it comes to critters, it just goes off like crazy and it's just way too loud. The developers need to tweak the sound it makes around the roaches, because I couldn't help but get very agitated by the loud static the radio emitted from them. At the end of the day, I preferred to play without the radio nonetheless, as you'll be more on edge and wary of your surroundings since the radio can be a clutch item. Lastly, in terms of technical performance, for the most part, Silent Hill 2 Remake is just right. I played on console, PS5, and for the most part, I had a good smooth 60 frames when the gameplay was in motion. However, in very certain parts of the game when a lot is happening at once, the frame rate just takes a dump. Not to mention that all cutscenes are at default 30 frames, so that's disappointing to say the least. Hopefully, in future updates, they can fix some of these issues, but as the game stands, it's actually pretty okay when it comes to technical performance. As for negatives, I'll only state that some of the puzzles, especially in Brookhaven Hospital, are nothing more than go here, get this item that is in a locked door, find the key to said door in a room that requires a code, and find the code in the bottom of a pool that requires draining. Now, not meant to be taken literally, that statement is more so a figure of speech. Some of the puzzles are just a little too tedious to do and slow down the pacing a lot, which is pretty normal in this type of game. However, you can definitely overdo it, and this game is certainly guilty of it. As for the game in general, I am going to give Silent Hill 2 Remake a 10 out of 10, and is a contender for Game of the Year. I had a blast playing this game, and it is definitely quite the surprise when so many people doubted it. I clocked in about 40 hours to 100% the game. I got all 8 endings and did a total of 3 full playthroughs. As for the first playthrough, I went in completely blind without the use of any guides, and on standard combat and puzzle difficulty, not having died once and completing the game in 16 hours with the in-water ending. For my platinum runs, I did a second playthrough collecting all the glimpses to the past, the memos, and the strange photos. Completion in under 10 hours, the radio silence trophy, and the leave ending. On the way, I also picked up any miscellaneous trophies I missed along the way, like the no turning back trophy or the secret of room 106 trophy. And last but not least, for the final run, I made sure to only use the chainsaw and no ranged weapons playing on New Game Plus, and made a save in the Lakeview Hotel after collecting all ending specific items except for the Lost Memories book and went from there. After securing the Maria ending, I reloaded the save to obtain the rest of the endings, which finally bestowed upon me the glorious Platinum Trophy for Silent Hill 2. In terms of difficulty obtaining the Platinum Trophy, I am going to give Silent Hill 2 Remake a Platinum difficulty of 4 out of 10. Not necessarily being hard to get, but a little tedious and time consuming if you're not planning out runs for efficiency. I heavily recommend grinding for the Silent Hill 2 Platinum, and this game was truly something special. Fingers crossed we get more remakes in the future, and I'm definitely looking forward to what the Silent Hill franchise has planned for the massive comeback of a dormant franchise. Now look fellas, my personal advice, just go buy this game and support these developers in the best way that you can. That just about wraps it up for the episode of Platinum Quest. This has been Behind the Grind, where we critique and review your favorite video games. Thank you so much for watching, and if you stick around until the end, please consider liking this review if you enjoyed, and if you want to stay up to date with new videos in the future, subscribe and activate the bell notification as it helps out tremendously. That's about it, and see you in the next one.